Enjoy today's session, and without further delay, I'd like to hand it over to our featured presenter today, recruiting and corporate hiring consultant, Gary O'Neill. Gary, you now have the floor.
Great, thank you. Hi, Mayan. Hello, everyone. My name is Gary O'Neill. Welcome to Effective Job Search Strategies. I thought what we'd do just to kind of kick things off is I'll tell you just a little bit about who I am so you kind of know the perspective that I'm coming from. So I've run recruiting teams. Actually, before that, I was a software engineer and led large infrastructure, IT infrastructure teams, and was responsible for a lot of hiring of people. I ran a couple of companies as an entrepreneur, so I've hired 400 or 500 people myself. But since about 2000, I've run recruiting teams for companies as large as Microsoft and Dell, and little companies as tiny as a couple of people in just about every industry. So I've seen somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 or so hires happen. I've run recruiting teams as large as 35, and right now I do a lot of consulting and hiring related activities and recruiting related activities for a number of different corporations right this very second. So I interview every single day. I work as a recruiter every single day, so I've been doing it for a while. My point in telling you all of that is I've been inside of 350, 400 companies in some material sort of way and have seen how they hire. And what I can tell you is everything happens, everything that you can possibly imagine, from companies that are really well organized, that they're very responsive to the people who are kind enough to consider them as their next employer, to ones who have it totally messed up, who are totally disorganized and are essentially clueless about what it is that they do. So everything happens along the way. So in this particular session, Effective Job Search Strategies, this is actually my favorite of the sessions that I do. And the reason why is because, well, the short version is that if I were looking to make a career move, if I were looking for a job, if I were going to execute a job search, this is exactly what I would do. This is how I would go about it, having seen so many different things happen along the way. Because during the process of a job search, I mean, there are a number of different things that happen, all the way from applying to jobs and people reviewing resumes and interviews and jobs opening and closing and budgets changing and like everything. And there's so many hurdles along the way, right? There's the hurdle of getting past the applicant tracking system, getting past the person who's first screening. I mean, there's all these hurdles and these things that happen along the way. And more important, there are a lot of decisions that are made along the way with regard to next steps in the hiring process, whether you're going to get an interview, whether you're going to get an offer, whether or not anyone's going to call you, whether or not anyone's going to pay any attention to your resume. All of those are decisions that are being made largely by people. And a lot of the decisions are actually made not because they actually legitimately made a choice, but because there's so much activity that they didn't even pay attention to your resume, let's just say. So let's just start off with this idea that getting hired isn't one big decision called, let me make you an offer and you say yes and we get started. It's a whole series of micro decisions that happen all along the way. You know, those micro decisions start with when I first view your resume, or when the applicant tracking system might score your resume, with some ranking system. So there's this whole series of decisions that happen along the way. And I believe that those decisions more or less come with sound effects. And those sound effects are something along the lines of, oh, yeah, great. See, so those are good sound effects. Or, I don't know, right? Those are not as good sound effects. So the reason why I'm telling you that is that in this session, I'm going to do the best that I can to share examples with you, to share as much as I possibly can about the things that I've learned along the way, so that there is no single one way that companies hire, but there is enough in common that what we can do is that we can shift the odds in our favor at every single step. How do we make it so that our application or our resume is more likely to get through the applicant tracking system? What do we do so that if a really junior associate who doesn't really even understand the job that you're applying for is reviewing your resume, they're likely to say yes? What is it that we can do at every step along the way to increase the odds that we get an offer? In fact, that we get multiple offers. Isn't that what we really want? Wouldn't we really love to have choice? So Effective Job Search Strategies is all about, if I was going to go to market and look for a job, this is what I would do. And to illustrate those points, I'm going to kind of take you behind the scenes so you can really see what goes on. and share a bunch of stories with you along the way and hop online and show you some things. So let's get started. So we're here to talk about getting hired. That's what we're here to talk about. And what I understand is that some of you, probably for most of you, you feel a little bit like you're on the outside looking in because you just don't know how this thing works called hiring. And the truth is you can't know how it works. I've done it a lot. I still don't know how it works because it works so differently inside of different companies. But what I am going to do is to take you behind the scenes as much as I can, because the idea is that it's easier to win if you know how to play the game. And I mean, I know it's not a game. Well, can be a serious game. It's not a game in that sense, but the same as, say, NFL players. I mean, that's an important game to them. That there are, not just rules, but there are strategies. There are things that you can do to essentially get further down the field more easily. And that's what I'm here to tell you about and to talk to you about, which is how to play the game in such a way that we can shift the odds in your favor, so that when an offer comes out, that it comes to you. And the real goal behind an effective job search is to get multiple offers. I mean, wouldn't that be a great thing? It happens, right? I work with people every day, maybe not every day, but every week, who have multiple offers that are going on. So easier to win if you know how to play the game. So, if you've been in some of my sessions, you may have seen this before, because it's one of my favorite questions, which is, what is it, what do all people who get hired have in common, right? Because this transaction that's called hire, right? We extend an offer, you say yes, we agree that we're going to work together, you're going to join our team. And that could be as a contractor, it could be as an employee. In this point, I don't care about the nature of the relationship. I care a lot more about this event called I'd like to hire you and you'd like to work with me. And so that event called hire, what do all people who get hired have in common? And the idea is that if we understand what they all have in common, then we should do that, be that, copy that, follow that, because the real truth of the matter is, well, just think about that for a second. What do all people who get hired have in common? All right. In fact, we got a little, in your little GoToWebinar window over there in that chat session, you wouldn't mind typing a few things in there, and maybe Mayan, you could help me out with that because I can't see that. But what are some of the things that what would you say that all people who get hired have in common? Maybe type us a few things. What do you think, Mayan? Got anybody telling us anything?
We're waiting for some people to enter and just go to the questions out box. Okay, one that came in is communication skills and agreement.
Yeah.
They network. Let's see, confidence.
Right.
Motivation, team player skills, critical thinkers, desperate for income, which is a good one.
Well, here's the thing, right? So all of those are true in some sense, because if you have a great interview, that certainly helps. If you have a great resume, that certainly helps. If you have a network, that certainly helps. If you're motivated, that certainly helps. If you have really, the great skills and qualifications, that certainly helps. If you're charismatic, all these things, right? But I'm here to share with you that I know people who have flop sweats in their interview and they get hired. I know people who get hired who don't have a resume at all. I know people who don't know anyone. They're new to town. They're new to this country. They don't even hardly speak the language. So all of those things are helpful. But the only thing that I've found that's in common with everyone who gets hired is that they get to the front of the line. That's it. Everything else, I've seen crazy things happen, right? And most of the times crazy things don't happen, but it all comes down to getting to the front of the line. And what the front of the line is getting in front of the person who ultimately makes the decision to extend an offer to you that then you have to decide if you're going to accept. So ultimately, it's that person who hires you, getting in front of them, because I know of zero instances of the 15,000 or so hires that I'm familiar with that the person who was hired didn't get to the front of the line and didn't talk to the hiring manager, right? Hiring manager, by the way, isn't a job title. Hiring manager is, there's usually a person, sometimes a couple, but usually a person who ultimately makes the decision as to whether or not to extend you an offer. That's the hiring manager. So I know of zero instances where somebody didn't have an interaction with the hiring manager, usually in person, sometimes virtual, but it always happens, right? Getting to the front of the line. So our strategies really are that you know, as a recruiter, I'm in your way because I'm between you and the hiring manager. The applicant tracking system is in your way. Indeed is in your way. Your resume is in your way. Your interviews are in your way. Everything is in the way of getting in front of the hiring manager. So our number one strategy in our effective job search is to get to the front of the line as quickly and effectively as you possibly can. And the cool thing about it is that when you do what it takes to get to the front of the line, one, you're exhibiting the kinds of characteristics that most hiring managers really want to hire, which is showing you do what it takes to get the job done. And two is that unlike this line that's on the screen now, or maybe for the movie theater this evening or whatever it is you're doing, no one will see you skip to the front of the line.
Gary,
So that's what, yes,
didn't mean
hi.
to interrupt you. We're stuck on the intro slide, so we
I
haven't moved on to the next. There you go.
well, and you missed my you missed my great graphics, right? So go back. Right, we're getting hired, and then we're on the outside looking in, right? And now we it's easier to win if you know how to play the game. There's the chess game. Thank you. And here we go. They got to get to the front of the line. So there's the long line. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to move all the way to the front of this line as quickly and effectively as we can. And that's kind of really, in essence, what this session is really all about. And I'm just going to share with you stories and techniques and things that I would do if I were you. Right. So let's do it. I love this particular picture, and the reason why I found it online, I don't know, a year or so ago, you know, job fair opportunity. The line starts here. The thing I want you to think about is when you apply for a job online, or when you apply for any job that's kind of an open job that you know somebody's hiring, I mean, where do you apply? When you apply? Are you applying at the front of the line, or are you applying at the end of the line? Yeah, you're applying at the end of the line. And what's happening in this open job space is that it's actually really quite competitive. And what I mean by it's really quite competitive is that, let me just tell you I'll tell you about a couple of hiring managers who I know right now. One of them, just their company just posted a job online about 2 days ago. They've got 87 people who I think have applied for that job. They're not going to look at them all. They don't have the time to do that. You know, I know some people right now who work for Indeed. They're responsible for 37 different jobs. There's about 170 people who have applied for each one. So that's somewhere in the neighborhood of what, 6,000-ish or so, 5,000-ish or so people who've applied for the job. And so my point is that in this open job space, when you apply for a job, you're applying at the end of the line. And a lot of things have to happen. You have to get paid attention to. You have to get to the front of the line. You have to get to the front of the ATS. You got to get ranked right. Somebody's got to review your resume and move you on to the next step. You got to have a screening interview. There's all these things that happen. And so, again, we're here to talk about how to get from the line starts here to essentially moving around that line as effectively as we possibly can. All right, so let's do that. Here's another question for you, and I would love for you to type some of the answers in here, please, which is, what can we assume, or maybe a better way to word this is, what is a helpful assumption that we can make when we see a job that is open and posted online? What are some of the assumptions that we can make? And in particular, what are some of the helpful assumptions that we can make? So if you'd help us out, Maya can help out, you know, reading some of those, but what are some of the assumptions you make when you see a job that's open and posted online?
All right, let's see here. Still waiting for some answers to come on in. Some questions is, am I qualified?
Am I correct?
It's posted internally first before open to the public. There's a
Okay.
problem to solve. Why is this position open? Already has 100 applicants by the time I see it. That's what someone
Right.
said.
Yeah.
The job is still open, actively looking to fill the job, not just fishing. Company is hiring. However, in education, a lot of the jobs are already filled. That's what someone
Yep.
had noted.
Right.
Maybe to see if the job is really needed by the company.
Sure. All of
Uh,
those things.
yeah, how many other
Right.
people are applying?
Right. Exactly. So all of those things are really true. Every single one of them. In fact, I can give you examples of where they already know who they're going to hire, but they had to post the job because of internal requirements. I know ones that they posted the job, but nobody intends to look at them at all. I know others where they're wishing somebody would apply for the job. I know some that are set up where essentially when somebody applies for the job, it's going to an administrative assistant who doesn't even know why those things are coming to her. I know that's happening right now. So everything happens, but the one helpful assumption that we can make, that I would suggest that you make, is the one assumption we can make, that when we see a job that's open and posted online, is that there is a person who is the hiring manager who needs your help. And we can assume, because if you've ever been a hiring manager, I assure you, you weren't happy with the recruiting services that you were getting. You weren't happy with the fact of how long it was taking to hire. You weren't happy. I mean, most of the time, by the time a job is actually really open and posted online, there's a hiring manager whose hair is on fire. They needed somebody who was started not only yesterday, but a month or two ago. And so we kind of got to go, you know, if we make that assumption, now we go, wow, there are people out there who need my help, and how dare you not go to market and help those people. So let's make the assumption. And the reason why I bring this up is I see a lot of people who are in job search mode and they want to make all kinds of assumptions about these jobs. Maybe it's open and maybe it's not. Maybe they're just doing this and they're gathering resumes. By the way, nobody gathers resumes. Nobody does that. And the reason why nobody does that is that I have this thing called LinkedIn, and it's pretty much got everybody that I care about connecting to. There's nobody gathering resumes, right? It just doesn't make sense to do that. But the only helpful assumption we can have is there is someone who needs your help. There's a hiring manager who has a problem. They're not getting the recruiting services that they need because their recruiters are really too busy, right? Recruiting is a very busy job. Sometimes it's a sign. So then no matter what, there's an open job. Somebody wishes that they had gotten to hire somebody yesterday or a month or two ago, and they need help. All right, that's the assumption that we can make, and that's the best assumption we can make, and that will inform all of our decisions and everything we do from here. All right. One of the things that you might not know is that it matters how you find, and specifically how you apply for jobs online. Because my assumption is a lot of you, most of you, your primary, if not your only job search strategy is looking for jobs that are posted online, right? I mean, is that a lot of you? Is that your primary or maybe even your only job search strategy? We're going to talk about that. And the main thing I want you to understand right now is that nobody knows the exact numbers, but it's certainly, you know, less than 30%. It's probably less than 20% of all hires happen as a result of somebody applying for a job that's online. As an example, my team and most of our clients, we don't even post the majority of jobs that are ever open that we're working on. So I know as a matter of fact that the majority of the jobs that I've been associated with and my teams have been associated with in the last lots of years, which means thousands of jobs, have never been posted at all. So, but when you, and I'll tell you what to do about that in a later section of this session, but you know, when you are applying for jobs online, which is an important part of the strategy, I would do that too, how you apply for jobs really matters. So let me show you some stuff. I'm gonna take this down for a second, and I'm gonna bring up a new browser window. Let me try to get this out of the way. Hang on, I gotta reorganize my windows for just a second. And yeah, let me drag this up here. All right, so I want to show you a couple of things. And what we're talking about is we're talking about this space of the open job space and how you find and how you apply for jobs online, why it matters. I'm going to take you behind the scenes a little bit and show you why it matters. By the way, a lot of you are probably familiar with Indeed. I don't know whether you know that Google has a really kind of hidden out there job search engine that's really, really, really good. So what I'm going to do is right here in this thing right here, I'm going to say system administrator jobs in Austin, Texas. All right. I think I spelled administrator wrong, but it'll work anyway. Here we go, we'll click on this one. So when you search Google for that, it'll bring up this blue banner, which is their job search engine. When you click on that blue banner, it will take you, come on, here we go, there it is. It'll take you into Google's job search engine, right? Here it comes, I promise you, it will pop up here anytime now. All right, great. And so what we see here is over here on the left, a bunch of different jobs that Google has organized here that are system administrator jobs in Austin, Texas. And one of the things you may or may not know is that the way Indeed works is that the majority of jobs you see on Indeed, they basically look at companies' websites with regard to their career page, and they basically scrape all of that information and present it to you. And then those companies that want their jobs to appear at the top of the list or more frequently have to pay Indeed money. So the jobs that you see on Indeed are primarily the companies that are willing to or can afford to pay Indeed to essentially push their jobs to the top. Google searches, and Indeed has a search engine that goes and looks for a job and they post them and they push the ones to the top where companies are paying them money. Google is essentially doing a similar sort of thing, but I guess I would ask you who probably has a better search engine, Indeed or Google? Yeah, probably Google. So you might want to check it out. It'll also show you that with regard to this particular title, System Administrator Jobs in Austin, Texas, it shows you other common titles or features that are used. You can look at all the different titles that these people have or similar jobs that people have. You can mess with locations, right? This one right here, date posted. My only advice to you with regard to date posted is pay zero attention to it. It means nothing. Like, make no assumption about the date posted. And you might say, well, it was posted a long time ago. All I can tell you is that I can show you lots of instances where a job was posted 75 days ago. No one was paying any attention to it whatsoever. And then today somebody says, hey, what the heck? We haven't hired that person yet. And somebody finally pays attention to it. So I'm just telling you, the date posted doesn't matter. You can't deduce anything. I can't assume anything when I see about date posted. So that probably means you can't either. So anyway, interesting job search engine. The other thing I'd like you to notice, right? See this one right here, right? System administrator job, tailored management, Austin, Texas. I don't know that company, but that doesn't mean anything. I could apply on ZipRecruiter. I could apply on Job Diva. Who's ever heard of that one? I could apply on Glassdoor. I could apply on Jobalize? Really? Jobalize? Jobalize, just what we need, another place to have jobs. Apply on Metro Jobs Austin. The thing I'd like you to take away from this, though, is that I want to show you some stuff about what happens when you apply. So, how you find jobs matters. And you can use Indeed, you can go to corporate websites, you can use Google search engine, which is the one that I would probably do. By the way, you can right here, you can save your searches and you can set up alerts so that when things are posted, right, you can respond quickly. Which, by the way, responding quickly is one of the things that you can do to get yourself to the front of the line, because here's the truth. If I posted a job right now, after this webinar, midday on Friday, by the end of the day today, I would have 25 or 30 people, depending on the job, who had applied already. And so as a recruiter, if I posted it midday today, by the end of the day, I might go look. And if I had 25 people who had applied for the job, and I look and I go 5 or 6 of those are actually really interesting, I'm going to send them messages today. And by Monday or Tuesday next week, I'm talking to them. And if I'm talking to people who are really great and really good fit for this role and things are moving forward, now 75 or 100 more people apply on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I may not have time to pay any attention to them. So how fast you apply does matter, because you can and it gives you one shot to get to the front of the line, right? If you so set up alerts so you see when these things happen, and how fast you apply does matter. That's not really what I want to tell you about. What I really want to tell you about is when you see a job that is one that is likely to be the kind of job that makes sense for you, then let me show you how I suggest you apply for the job, which is I usually wouldn't suggest that you click any of these things. And let me show you the reason why. The reason why is this. I'm going to bring up my email. And in my email, I ran this search, which is, I said, show me things from Indeed that says applied. We rarely post jobs, but occasionally we do. So this is when anyone applies on Indeed, on ours, what it does, it sends an email message, right? It sends an email. And so when you apply for a job on Indeed, the person who's receiving it is going to receive something like this, right? In their email is primarily where they're going to receive it. And when you think about who is on the receiving end of that, let me tell you 3 people who I know today who are on the receiving end when people apply for a job. And I'm just using the example Indeed. It could be Job Diva, it could be Monster, it could be Career Builder, it could be ZipRecruiter, it could be any one of those things. But 3 different people who I know of today. One is an administrative assistant who a client had us post a job, and when somebody applies, it emails this administrative assistant who is on vacation right now, who doesn't even know that when she gets back next week that there's going to be 175 applicants that are in this pile for a job that she doesn't really understand, along with 500 or 600 other email messages that she's got and is going to have to wade through. So when you apply for Indeed, mostly it comes to somebody through email. So there's an example of one person that's coming through who is going to have that nice surprise on Monday. Other people that it comes to is I know someone who's a hiring manager, and they posted a job a couple of days ago. Just this morning was talking about, oh my God, I got like 78 applicants. What am I going to do? Right? And sometimes it comes to a recruiter like me, sometimes it comes to the hiring manager. But my point is, when you apply for a job on Indeed, mostly, and there's some people who will work directly inside of Indeed, but not most people. Mostly it's going to come to them as an email message. What people usually do is, this is the resume that comes. So instead of even opening this message, most of the time somebody will just click on and just open the resume. And what I want you to notice about this resume is that this is not this individual's actual resume. It doesn't give me their contact information. In fact, what it redoes is Indeed reformats your resume into an Indeed format, which is really generic like this. It hacks things out of your resume. So I don't actually see your real resume. I don't actually see your email address, which is really irritating to me because I have to go through Indeed to do this. And so, when I open it up here, what's going to happen is that administrative assistant who's going to get back on Monday and have 178 people who I know have already applied for that job is going to look at something like this and go, okay, no, right? And what they're going to do is they're going to, either throw away or move on to the next email message, right? And go on to the next one, because that's the only way that she's going to be able to wade through all of this stuff. So my point in this is I want you to see what happens on the other end of things. So when you apply for a job on Indeed, I want you to understand that if you applied on Indeed, it reformats your resume. It doesn't give me your email address. I can't easily contact you in the future. And the truth of the matter is that mostly I'm working out of my applicant tracking system. So if it turned out that I am interested in working with you, here's what I got to do. Let me just show you real quick. I bring up your resume, I go, oh, okay. Now what I have to do is see this download button right here. I got to download your resume. I'm just showing you all of this because I want you to see what happens behind the scenes. I've got to download your resume. And now what I have to do is I have to go to my applicant tracking system, which is this one right here. And now I have to go over here to candidates and come on. I got to wait and I got to wait and I got things to do and I got to wait, right? Come on. Sorry about that. It's taking longer than I thought. All right, and now I got to hit add candidates. Add candidates, please. So by the way, you're seeing really what happens sometimes, which is, oh, I haven't got time for this. I mean, I ain't got time for this. I'm going to move on to the next thing, right? Recruiting and hiring is really, really busy. So now what I have to do is I have to add the candidate, I have to upload your thing, I have to go create a record for you, and I've got to go attach you to that job, right? So what's going to happen is when I drag this resume, which by the way, I don't really want to do because I got other things to do. Come on. There we go. Now what's going to happen is it's parsing and uploading your resume, but it's not really giving your real email address. This is your Indeed email address that you don't even know that you have. And I click next, and I figure out now I got to go attach it to a particular job, and on and on and on. So what I'm going to not do is finish adding this person to that particular job. But what happens is those are the steps that I have to take to even get you into the applicant tracking system where the hiring managers and the other people and the interviewers can be involved. So now imagine that 178 people applied for the job. Imagine that I'm making my way through all of this. Now you can begin to understand why chances are good when you apply for a job online that no one even sees your resume, right? Is that beginning to make sense? I'm going to show you what to do about this, by the way. So the other thing I'd like you to see though is that behind the scenes, when you apply for a job directly on a company's website, then what happens is it doesn't come to somebody's email. We don't have to upload your resume. We actually have your real email address. So if you go through ZipRecruiter or any of those kinds of things, they always want to force us to come back through their system. For most of us as recruiters and for most companies that I look at, responding to those kinds of people who apply through those, that's the second or third or kind of last thing that we do. What we'll do instead is that people who apply directly on the corporate website go directly into the applicant tracking system. So you can see here that, you know, this is one of the jobs. This one's back. Is it current? Yeah, it's pretty current. It's a little bit old. I think we filled this one already. But what you can see is there was a bunch of people who applied directly. There was 65 people or so who applied directly, and they go straight into the applicant tracking system. I want you to notice this score over here, right? We don't use this score. In fact, I changed the system for our clients so that it no longer organizes people by their score, but by default, what it does is ranks you and sorts you by your score, and then has a default that any score less than 3, it automatically sends a decline message, and no one's ever going to see your resume. The way that this happens is that this is a super simple matching system, which is that somebody decided that the more words in your resume that match the job description, the higher score you get. And somebody thought, in fact, lots of somebodies think that that's a really good idea, because the majority of applicant tracking systems that I know of do that these days, and people think that it matters, but they're wrong. And the reason why they're wrong is, let me give you a simple example. I actually placed a senior vice president of HR about a year ago who had applied for this job prior to them engaging with my team and paying us a lot of money to help them with it. But we went back and looked later, she had gotten a score of less than 2 for things such as, it was an HR job. In her resume, she always said human resources, and the job description said HR. In her resume, she said global, and in the job description, it talked about international. And so the point is, there weren't that many words that matched, so she was in the auto rejected pile. They couldn't fill the job. They paid my team. We presented her over. She was an awesome candidate, and the reason why she wasn't considered was because her score was too low in this matching algorithm. And I'm going to tell you what to do about that too. All right. Let me take just a pause and see how we're doing, to see if you got any questions and the rest. Let me level set before we do that to explain to you what I'm trying to do is to give you a little bit of information about what's going on behind the scenes so that you can understand why I'm going to make the suggestions I'm going to make, because what can we do about this? Because what I just told you is that when you apply for Indeed and apply it on ZipRecruiter and all those tools, that we don't love that on our end of things. There are a whole lot of people who are applying. There's a whole lot of hard to get any attention paid, and you're getting ranked by these keyword matching kinds of things. What do we do? The good news for you is, like in any system, if we can understand this stuff and we can do something about it, we can essentially hack the system and we can get ourselves to the front of the line. So there's really good news in all of this, because if you understand how it works, it's a whole lot easier to play the game. But what do you think, Mayan? Anything we need to pause for right now? Any questions, anything?
No questions so far. I think we can get to it.
Okay, great. So let's talk about what to do now that we know a few of these things. What else did I have up here? I had something else I wanted to show you. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not going to show you right now, but another thing I can show you is that inside of Indeed, depending upon how your resume is set up, that if you give them a PDF, sometimes it scrambles it, and some of them don't have resumes attached at all. In fact, let me just pick a couple of these. Here's Mary. Let's just go see what happens when I click on Mary. This is somebody who bothered to go into Indeed. Most people don't, they just look it out of their email. But if I actually go into my Indeed thing, and it's coming up so slow. Anyway, what I was going to show you is that in this particular case, it says, we are unable to display this resume. Please download. So now that somebody's really busy, they got lots of things going on, are they going to go download your resume, or are they going to change the status to reviewed or rejected, right? Because if they got 178 resumes to review this afternoon, plus a bunch of other kinds of things, they're just going to go, I haven't got time to download this, rejected, and you're done, right? That fast. All right, so that's that. Hopefully this stuff is making sense to you. I want you to understand what's really going on behind the scenes. So let me tell you what to do about that. I'm going to go back over here into this system administrator job search. So this may take a couple of tries, but just bear with me. I don't know this company, Tailored Management, but what we're going to do is we're going to go see if we can't find this company. So what I did is I just copied that. I'm opening a new tab and I'm going to go to Tailored Management. See if I can't find Tailored Management. Here it is. Employee portal, Tailored Management. Here we go. Look at this one. Sales representative, Tailored Management jobs. So if I go here to Tailored Management jobs, I'm editing that URL. What I'm going to go do is I'm going to go say the state is Texas. There's 12 jobs in Texas. And where is it? There was a system administrator job. It's probably here. Maybe not. Where is that system administrator job that shows that they've got 12 of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Doesn't appear to be here. So, we may have to, you might would apply online, but my point really is that when you can and you find a job that's out here, instead of applying through one of these things, find the company, SSI or Banzar Technologies, right? Here's another one. And go see if you can't find that job online, directly on their site. Because if you apply directly on their site, the chances of anybody paying attention goes up dramatically, right? It goes up dramatically. So I would do that every single time. Does that make sense? All right, I hope so. Let me see if I can get our slideshow presentation back up. One moment, please. Okay, here we go. So it does matter how you find them and how you apply for jobs online. And my suggestion, the big suggestion is when you're going to apply online, as often as you possibly can, go find the job directly on the employer's site and apply there. That doesn't mean that you can't apply other places as well, but if you had a choice of either going through Indeed and applying through Indeed or applying directly on the corporate website, I know which one gets the more attention. And I know if I make my living because people get hired. And what I know is that if there were 100 of you who are about to get, who are looking for a job, and, and all 100 of you apply for jobs directly on corporate websites, and I get paid every time one of you gets hired, and others of you apply through Indeed and Glassdoor and all those kinds of things, I know where I'm putting my money because I'm going to be with a group of people who are applying directly, because chances of me getting paid goes up dramatically, right? That's how much it matters. It goes up dramatically. All right. So now the question becomes, what happens after you apply? And I'm not going to belabor this, but the answer to this question is everything happens after you apply. After you apply, sometimes you're one of 178 that's sitting in somebody's email box along with hundreds of other things when they're coming off of vacation for a role that they don't really know or understand, and they're playing catch up. Sometimes after you apply for a job, a hiring manager who really needs your help, who's not getting all the applicants that they would like, gets your application and goes, whoa, look at this, I got to call this person right now. That happens too. Sometimes after you apply, it goes into an applicant tracking system where you're sliced and diced and sorted by how many words in your resume match the words that are in the job description. So the thing is, you can't really make any assumption about what happens after you apply. Though probably if I had to make an assumption, the only assumption I could make is that the chance of anyone actually looking at your resume is probably about 1 in 10, 1 in 8, 1 in 9. I mean, it'll vary from company to company, but in general, if you've applied for a lot of jobs and you don't hear anything back, I heard people say, they must not have looked at my resume. I'm kind of going, no, if you applied for 100 jobs, chances are maybe your resume only got looked at 10 or 12 times, right? So that's what happens after you apply. So let's talk about what we can do about some of this stuff and solve this problem, right? Hopefully I've made the point, and now let's do something about it. So let's start with this idea of optimizing keyword matching, because most of the employers who I know right now have an applicant tracking system and use one, even if they're a fairly small employer. And the majority of those applicant tracking systems, ATS, they're called. You ever heard of an ATS, applicant tracking system? In those ATSs, the majority of them these days do this keyword matching, and the majority of them by default will organize and sort and slice and dice and stack rank you based upon those kinds of things, and even filter you out automatically and send you a no thanks message if you don't do this. So let me show you what to do about this keyword matching thing. All right, so here's what I would do. What I would do is this. And just for fun, I'm going to go to this one, System Administrator at Banzar Technologies. And it doesn't matter which, doesn't matter what job it is, I would do it exactly the same way. So here's what I would do. I would come to the job listing. I would grab all of this text. And, oh, look at this one. Down at the bottom it says, if interested, please send your resume to, look at that, nkey@banzar.com along with desired rate. We'll talk about that later. I wouldn't give them any desired rate. But what I would do is I would email Anki, right? And you had to go down to the bottom. That would be so much better. What this is telling you is that Anki is giving you a chance to get to that Anki is probably not the hiring manager, so it's probably not the front of the line. But what's amazing to me is when I do post jobs and I put my contact information directly on there, maybe 1 in 100 people reach out to me. And what I can tell you is the people who do get my attention. So there's a real answer. That one's rare to see that. But now what I do is I'm going to assume that the text that's in this job description is the same, right, as the actual job. Let's go see if we can't find Banzar Technologies real quick, by the way. B-A-N, Banzar Technologies. Come on, Google. Banzar Technologies, LinkedIn, Banzar Technologies. You know, I should probably figure this out ahead of time, but we could go look up Banzar Technologies, right, and go see if we couldn't apply on it directly. But what I would do, no matter what, even if I got to their website, I would pick that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the text from the job and I'm going to copy that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my resume. And I'm just opening a resume template. Hang on one second. Here we go. Words coming up, and I'll show you. One second. Here we go. Let me drag this onto the screen where you can see it. This is just a resume template that I use. By the way, the best resume template, best resumes are super simple, no boxes, no charts, no columns, no graphs, no any of that kind of stuff, because the applicant tracking systems that basically parse your resume and pull them in hate those, and chances are good that it's all going to get scrambled anyway. So what I do is I've got that stuff in my copy buffer. I'm going to go paste it at the bottom of this resume, right, is what I'm going to do. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this stuff and I'm going to break it into pieces, right? I'm going to talk about, I don't know what all is going to be relevant here, but here's what I know. If I took the text out of the job description and I put my name and my contact information at the top of the job description and I use that as my resume and I applied for the job online, I will get a 100% keyword match and I will be at the top of the list because I use the job description as my resume. Now, what'll happen is when somebody looks at that and they open it, they're either going to think that I'm insane and that's going to be a great way to get myself declined out of the process, or it might be somebody like me where I put a little note on it that says, hey, I was trying to get your attention, so I use the job description, right? And I might go, wow, this person's doing what it takes. And I would talk to that person. I wouldn't suggest you do that. But my point is that this is what's going to get you highly ranked. So go through here and you know, anything that you could legitimately keep on your resume, including the words like Austin, right? See, we have so many things. Get rid of the these and the A's and the N's and quickly go through, and what you can end up with is this block of text at the bottom of your resume that's going to literally match. And it doesn't matter, the systems are not smart enough to know which words really matter and which words don't. It's just a sheer number of words that match. And you could put that down at the bottom of your resume. Some of the things like Outlook Web Access, let's say, or Citrix XenApp, or any of those kinds of things that are really, really relevant, then you'd want to make sure that particularly at the top of your resume, that you put those words in where you can under your skills or your certifications, because those are going to help you match more. If you wanted to, you could even say, like here it says T-SQL, Ruby, Python. In your resume, you could say, do not have T-SQL, Ruby, and Python, and it would actually make your resume match higher, right? And the other thing that I would definitely do is take the actual title of the job that they have posted. In this particular case, it is system administrator. And in your resume, what you ought to do is that at the top of your resume right here, most people have something like executive summary or something like that on the top. Don't waste those black pixels on white screen. One of the things I would do is I would say system administrator right here at the top. Right? Don't say summary, say system administrator, right? Whatever their title is, put that at the top of your resume. So this is a quick and dirty way. Takes a little bit of time, but not that long, 15 minutes if you're good at it, to essentially really increase the odds that your resume is going to make it through that first step of getting highly ranked in the applicant tracking system, right? So we're going to game the system a little bit, right? Okay, cool. So that's what we're going to do. That's one of the things that we can do with respect to making sure that we're able to optimize keywords. But let me show you some other stuff that's probably more important. Bring up this presentation again. All right, so keyword matching. Here's what's even more important though, is that earlier I asked you, when you saw a job that was posted online, what assumption can we make? And my suggestion is that the only hopeful assumption you can make is that there is a person out there who is called the hiring manager who desperately needs your help, who isn't getting good service, who has a pile of resumes maybe, or somebody who's not helping them at all, but they're not currently satisfied and they need help. They're too busy doing their current job. They wish somebody had started a month or two ago. And they're not interested in a resume and email. They're not, things aren't going well for them generally when they're trying to hire, right? It's just they're already overworked, and this is on top of everything else. And it's ironic how many hiring managers really need help, but they don't have time to recruit. They don't have time to interview. So my biggest suggestion to you with regard to applying for jobs in the open job space when you see them posted online is to connect with the hiring manager and the recruiter and people who are in HR and even peers, and reach out to them directly. And let me show you how to do that, and let me explain to you why that matters. So as an example, let me take me as a recruiter as an example. So I have a hiring manager. He's the senior vice president of science for a company that I work with. His name is Mike. Mike really needs to, and his team really needs to hire for this one particular machine learning position. And my team is working on it now for this week, but we've, kind of hardly gotten things started on it because we're busy working on a lot of other things. Right now today, if somebody who was a reasonably good fit for that job reached out to Mike directly, then what would happen is Mike would pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, I have this person who's applying. What do I got to do, my own recruiting or what? Because Mike desperately wants to hire somebody for that role. My team just got started. And if somebody reached directly out to Mike, I guarantee you that he would pay attention. I promise you he would pay attention. If somebody reached out to the CEO of this company, it's about a 200-person company, who was a machine learning scientist, the CEO would send that over to Mike, and then the CEO would go to the head of HR and say, hey, this person's applying directly. What are our recruiters doing, right? And so now what happened is the person who actually reached out to the CEO just might get the CEO's attention, which is clearly going to get Mike's attention, which is going to flow right downhill to me, and I'm going to go, hey, we're working on it, right? That's exactly what would happen. So my point is that when you apply for a job online, you're at the end of the line, first subject to a machine sorting you, second subject to probably an administrative assistant or somebody who doesn't really understand the job, who has other kinds of things to do, and their discrimination as to whether they're going to move you forward in the process or not, which is as easy as clicking a button, decline, or next, right? Yes or no, moving you forward. They're just clicking buttons. 178, or deleting you out of email, 178 emails for that administrative assistant who's coming in on Monday after vacation, right? Delete, 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 forward, delete, 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 forward. So all of those people are in your way. So let me show you how to connect with the hiring manager and the recruiter. It's really easy, is the good news. So let me show you. 1 second, I need to open a new tab. All right, I'm going to open this new tab, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to LinkedIn. You do have a LinkedIn account, right? Okay, good. And let me show you how important it is to use LinkedIn to find people, not just to be found. We have a whole session on leveraging LinkedIn where we go into this in detail, but I'm going to show you kind of the fundamental pieces of it right now. If LinkedIn will come up. Okay, cool. All right. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to go to this Google tab real quick. I'm going to look at these system administrators. And as a matter of fact, check out this one. I'm going to look at Banzar Technologies because it says I can apply via LinkedIn. And if I apply via LinkedIn, it's going to take me to that job in LinkedIn. Yet another place that people can post jobs. Good Lord, there's way too many of them. It's funny, as a recruiter, sometimes people say, hey, there's a new job board. It's like the last thing we need is another job board. The last thing we need. There are thousands of them. Thousands of them. We don't need any more. By the way, if you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. You do know that when people are searching for you on LinkedIn, that the only people who can find you are if you're in their network connected to them. If you have a LinkedIn profile and you don't have a big network, then when people search for you, they won't find you unless they have unless they have a $1,000 a month upgraded LinkedIn account. All right, so here's what's going to happen, right? So I found Banzar Technologies. See all 5 employees on LinkedIn. So Banzar Technologies is a really small company. Oh, they're in the recruiting and staffing industry. So they're a recruiting and staffing company. Banzar is their, Banzar is their URL. So I'm going to open that, and we would go see if we couldn't apply directly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see all 5 of their, do you see that where I click there? See all 5 of their employees online. And why did it do that? Oh, look, there's Anki. That's the person who posted his job. What I'm trying to do is to show you the people who, wow, it's running so slow. My point, let me stop this from leaving this page. In this particular case, Banzar only has 3 people that are shown online. One is Anki, is the person who told you to email him, or even Karen, right? So you can go find the people who are behind this job in person. Let's pretend instead that the job was at a company called Revionics, which is the one that I was talking about. So let me show you how to find hiring managers another way. So what I suggest you do in LinkedIn is that you never type in this search box. What you always do is click in this search box and then say whether you're searching for people or jobs or companies or what have you. So I'm searching for people. And in this particular case, I'm trying to find a hiring manager, and I'm going to go with a company that I know very well, which is Revionics. It's one of my clients. That's where Mike is at, who I was talking about just a minute ago. And what's going to happen is that when you click on people to get to an advanced search, this is not my upgraded account. This is a free account, just like the one you probably have. I'm going to click on all filters right here. And I'm going to go to this under current companies, Revionics. is the company. And now what I'm going to do is if we saw that job that was posted, it would have been posted as machine learning scientist. So I'm just going to put in science, and I'm going to search for what this is searching for is people whose company is Revionics and their title includes the word science. And we're gonna click apply this filter. And dun da da da, Senior Vice President of Science at Revionics. I've got Wesker Lee, who's awesome. He's in the data science analytics team. I got Norberto, who is principal science engineer. I got Jared Carlson, who's data science engineer. I've got Frank Clanan, who is science software development manager. I got Dan Yang, who is on the data science and analytics team. And if we were hiring a machine learning scientist role and you had seen it posted online, the other thing I can tell you is Wesker knows that we're hiring a machine learning scientist. He does. And if you reached out to Wesker, Wesker would send you over to, in his case, he would actually send you to Jared. Jared knows that we're hiring machine learning scientists. He would send you to Mike. If you reached out to Mike, Mike is the hiring manager. Norberto knows that Mike is hiring if you reached out to Norberto. Frank does too, so does Dan, so does Sneha, right? Everyone knows that we're hiring somebody on board this team. So if you apply for the job, if they had it posted somewhere and you applied through the job through Indeed, it would get emailed to a person who's on my team. Sometime next week, they're going to bother to pay attention to it when they finally get caught up. They'll screen it, they'll set it up, they'll send it to Deidre. Deidre's going to do an initial call with you. After Deidre does an initial call with you, if things went well, Deidre will set you up for a call with me, literally. And then if that goes well, by the end of next week, I might get you presented over to Mike Ryan. Or when you saw the job that was posted online, you could come to LinkedIn, you could search for Avionics, you could find the people who are all around this job, and you could reach out to every single one of them, right? You could reach out to them yourself. Now, I'm already first person connected to all of these people, except for Dan Yang. So I'm going to go ahead and connect with Dan because I'll show you exactly what I would do if I was you. I would bring up all of these people who are in and around this stuff, and I'm just opening them in a new tab. And I'm going to open them in a new tab. Da na 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 na. It ought to play that music in the background. I think it would make it more amusing than watching this thing just go back and forth. I'm going to hold my breath. Here we go. Dan Yang. So, I've already got a message pending to him. But what you're going to find is when you, Dan probably doesn't use LinkedIn a whole lot. What's going to happen is, come on. Sorry, it's so slow. I don't know why it's so slow. Come on, Shniha. Oh, there we go. Whew. All right, so it should be faster. It's probably slow. You know what? I'm gonna turn off my webcam and see if that doesn't speed us up. Let me turn that off. Turn that off. See if it doesn't speed us up. All right, so I'm gonna click connect here to connect with Shniha, and you would add a note. And I would say, if I was looking for a job and I saw it was posted online, Shniha, I heard that is hiring a machine learning. I'm not going to really send this, but I would say, Sneha, I heard that Revionics is hiring a machine learning engineer. I would certainly appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you or whoever the hiring manager is. Bam, and I would send that invitation. And I would send the invitation to Sneha. I would send the invitation to Mike. I would send the invitation to all of the people who are in this list. And what would happen is once they accept your connection request, let's just go look at Mike. Let me show you what happens once somebody's accepted your connection request. Is that once I've got Mike Ryan has accepted my connection request in LinkedIn, I can click on contact info. And And now that I got contact info, right? I've got his personal email address right here, right? Mike, he hadn't doesn't have his one. He doesn't have his work email address out there. That's fine. But I've got his email address. I know I've got his Twitter. Nobody ever reaches out to him over Twitter ever. So you could certainly reach out to him over Twitter if you wanted to. And you've also got the ability to send them a message inside of LinkedIn. My preference would be go to email. I go to email every time because sending a message through LinkedIn, a lot of people filter all messages from LinkedIn into their trash or into their spam because they get so much stuff from LinkedIn. So you can't assume that people receive those messages. They don't come to LinkedIn very often. You can do it here, but in addition or instead of, I would always go to people's email or find a unique way that I can get a hold of them. Or I could literally pick up the phone and I could literally call Mike Ryan. And the way that I could do that is I can come here to, I'm going to do a Google search, which is Revionics phone Austin. I'm asking Google about Revionics phone number in Austin. See if it's going to give it to me directly. It's not, but what I can tell you is if I go to Revionics' website, I can go find their contacts page. It will show me the phone number for Austin. If I call the phone number from Austin, I'm going to get an auto attendant probably. And one of the auto attendants is going to say, for a directory of extensions, please press 8. And then I can dial Mike Ryan. I can do that. And then what happens is likely it's going to go straight into Mike Ryan's voicemail. And if it goes straight into Mike Ryan's voicemail, I'm going to say, hey, Mike Ryan, my name is Gary O'Neill. We haven't met, but I'm a machine learning engineer here in Austin, Texas, and I understand that you might be hiring people on board your team. I would be honored to be considered for that and to have a conversation to see if I might be the person who could really make a difference on your team. My number is 512, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to leave that message. Bam. And so now what happened is that I promise you, if you did that, Mike Ryan would respond and he would probably call me and say he's either going to chew me or he's going to say, whoa, we got somebody. So what's going to happen is Mike Ryan is going to have this experience of serendipity just happen for him because he needs to make this hire. He's needed to have this job open for about 2 months. His team is really, really underwater with regard to this. They just got permission to start it this week. My team has barely started, and you just showed up on Mike's front porch. Or maybe Frank brought you there, but you reached out to these people and you connected with these people and you skipped to the front of the line. You could pick up the phone, call Mike, and he might answer. Hi, this is Mike Ryan. Say, hey, Mike Ryan, my name is Gary O'Neill, machine learning engineer here in Austin, Texas. Have you got a second? Sure, I got a second. Okay, great. Hey, I saw a job that was posted online. I understand that you guys are hiring. I know that I just called you out of the blue, but I would certainly welcome an opportunity to see whether I might not be the right person to help you make a real difference in terms on your team. There's a good chance that I get to go interview with Mike Ryan this afternoon, right? Yeah, there's a really good chance that I get to go interview with Mike Ryan this afternoon. All right. I really hope that that makes sense to you all. And I'm telling you, on this, pardon me 1 second while I bring this back up. Connect with the hiring manager, connect with the recruiter, connect with HR. Sometimes it's hard to know if you have the hiring manager, but you can go find people who are all around them. Everybody who was on that search list I showed you would know that Mike is hiring onto his team. And then what I would do is I would also search Revionics for HR. I would search Revionics for hiring manager, or excuse me, for human resources. I would search Revionics for recruiter. You won't find one because my team is the recruiting team for Revionics. And I would do what it took to go identify these people, reach out to them directly, and get myself to the front of the line. And I would skip all the way there, and I promise you it'll work. I promise you it will work. If there is a recruiter, find the recruiter will respond to you, doing what it takes to get to the front. And it doesn't take that much, right? I mean, here's what we're talking about. We found a job that was posted online. We copy and paste the details out of that job description. We put it into our resume. We get rid of the ands and the these and the rest. And we leave a block down at the bottom. I might even highlight that block and say, hey, this block of text is to ensure that I get a better keyword match with your applicant tracking system. Haha, right? By the time somebody gets to the bottom of your resume, they're already interested in you. And they might find that really fascinating, right? Don't make it white. like show it. And then those words that make sense, substitute them, push them up in the top of your resume. Take the title of the job, get rid of where your resume says summary and put the title of the job, and make as many words match as you possibly can. And not just match, if the job description has the word snooker in it 5 times and you put snooker in your resume, you're going to be the only one that matches that particular word right down there in the bottom. There's that. And then what you do is go to the company's page in LinkedIn, or go to their executive, go find the people who are the hiring managers, the peers around it, the recruiters, reach out, connect with them, get their contact information, reach out to them. And that is, that's your answer, right? That's really the answer. That's what I would do. And the reason why I would do that is that's kind of recruiting in reverse. It's kind of recruiting in reverse. For that position that I was talking about, that's for Mike Ryan. I did a search. There were 673 people in the search yesterday. I was able to make my way through about 175 of those, identifying people who might be high probability. I sent them all connection requests. What's going to happen is about 30 of them accepted my connection request. This afternoon, I'm going to reach back out to those people, and a couple of them are going to engage with me. And by sometime next week, I'll have 3 or 4 or 5 candidates that I've already talked to that I can present over to Mike Ryan. So that's how I recruit, and that's exactly what I would do, which is, just go find people who you can help. And job posts are nothing more than an indicator that there's a person who needs your help and you need to go find them, right? Okay, cool. That's how that works. If I were doing this, if I were looking for this job and I found a job that was online, I found these people, I connected with them, I have their email addresses, I'm reaching out to them, I would do politely persistent follow-up messages. I would probably know exactly what I was going to do on all of these, because I would probably find 100 different companies and reach out to them. But I'm going to have politely persistent follow-up messages, because my assumption is that they're really, really busy. They're really busy and they meant to get back to me, and I'm just helping them out. So if I were executing a job search and I was reaching out to these people, here are the general style of 3 messages I would use. And I hesitate to give these to you because it needs to be in your own words, not in mine, but here's the idea. My first message might be something like this. My name is Gary O'Neill, and I am in this particular case, I'm a certified network administrator and IT security specialist. I probably pulled those from the job description. I help computing companies get the most out of their computing investments. Hopefully I pulled something out of the job description for that too. Oops, sorry. I heard that you might be seeking high performance network administrator who is motivated to solve this problem, and this one, which I also pulled out of the job description. That's the first message I'm sending over to them. It's Friday. If I haven't heard from them by Tuesday, because I have to believe that this job is open and things are moving forward by Tuesday, maybe Wednesday at the outside, I'm going to send this message. Hey, I'm following up with a message I sent last week. I know that you're busy. I don't mean to be a bother. I'm just networking to find a new career opportunity with the company. You can use my help. I am a certified network administrator, or whatever the right thing is. If you're not currently hiring, perhaps you know someone who may be interested in talking with me, right? And then by the end of next week, or maybe early the week after, I'm still networking and looking for IT professionals who might be interested, and you would change this depending upon the job, right? Who might be interested in talking with me. I don't want to be a bother, so this will be my last message. I'm a certified network, whatever it is, right? And you send that message. And now what you can do is, because you found a whole list of people, you can reach out to them 3 times, and then you cross them off your list, right? You cross them off the list, so you don't have to think about it anymore, right? That's what you do. All right. So hopefully this resonates with you, because here's what I know. I do make my living because I don't make my living because people get hired. I make my living because my clients, customers are able to make great hires. But in the end, it kind of looks the same. So I get paid because people get hired. And here's what I know. If there were 100 of you who were applying for jobs online and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, which, by the way, waiting is not a strategy, or at least it's not a good one. And there were 100 of you who did what I just suggested, which is go directly to the company, get the details of the job, paste it in your job description, take 10 minutes to do that, identify the people on LinkedIn, reach out to them, send them 3 politely. If I got paid for everyone who got hired out of those 2 sets, which set of people are you betting on? The people who are applying for jobs and waiting, or the people who are applying for jobs and also reaching out to these people and making stuff happen? Which team do you put your money on? Me too, right? It's clear. It's so clear. And so then the question becomes, which team are you on? So if you're on the team that applies and waits, I suggest that you change teams and you go to the other team and do some of the things that we're talking about. All right. What do you think, Mayan? Or you still out there? Is anybody still out there?
There are a few questions that did come in, some good ones.
Okay, great.
All right. The first one was, and I want to say that you touched upon it, but not sure. Might be thinking of another session that you run. But if a job
Right.
is posted on a recruiting firm, is it better to apply to both the firm and the firm or the company or the both? I know you said it's always best to go to the company's website and then apply, but is there any harm in applying to that job multiple times in multiple places?
So so yes and no. So let me answer it this way. So what I would do if I saw one that's with a recruiting firm, and if you also see the company so sometimes when it's with a recruiting firm, you won't know who the company is. So that kind of solves that problem. But by the way, what you can do is if you see a job that's posted on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or whatever that's from a recruiting firm, you can take a lot of the text out of the job description because usually they didn't rewrite it from what the employer gave them. You can paste that into the Google search engine and see if it won't come up with the original job, right? So, but my answer would be apply through both. And here's the reason why. Revionics is a great example. You can apply directly to Revionics. And in the case of Revionics, it happens to come to my team anyway. If you found me online as a recruiter behind one of those things or one of my other recruiters on my team, we would kind of go, whoa, look, this person's actually really active. They reached out to all of us as well as reached out to that. So, I mean, it would be a good thing, right? So my suggestion is you take every avenue that you can. Where that becomes harmful is that you can't get psychotic about it. So what's weird is this. I see people, so I have people like at Revionics, they apply for 8 different jobs, probably not necessary. Are you really good and all those kinds of, I mean, really? So applying for multiple jobs at the same time, we can usually see that, and rarely does it make sense for somebody to apply to 20, right, jobs inside of the same company. So that's when things start looking weird, but you can take every avenue. And then when somebody responds to you, then, just full transparency. Hey, Gary, excited to talk to you, right? So, you're working with Revionics, right? Well, just in full disclosure, I've also applied over there, right? Just full disclosure, here we go, because the assumption is that the recruiters and everybody who's involved in the process are all aligned with the mission of ensuring that you get hired if you're a great fit for that person. So the more people you can reach out to and the more people you can connect with, the better, right? I guess, the real answer. Just don't be clear about which roles make sense for you, because if you apply for customer service and sales and IT, then we look and say, you have no idea what it is you want to do. And that tells us something too, and we'll veer off. But if you see one job, I'd apply and reach out to as many people as I can.
Great. Now, this question is when you were demonstrating, copying, pasting the job description and your resume and making sure to take out all the key components from the description and having that in your resume. The person asked, when you do that, where's the demonstrated qualifiable and quantifiable achievements, the expertise and the diverse experience that you and the transferable skills that you usually would put on your resume? Does that get lost as you are trying to do
Well,
that?
so here's probably the mistake. So there's just a misunderstanding, and it must be a communication error on my part. So let me be crystal clear about that. Let me show you. Bring it back up again. So all we're doing is this is a tailoring of your resume, and it's the fastest and easiest one. So this is just a resume template, but your resume would be all here. So if we started with it, you would have your quantifiable results, you would have your story, you would have your great resume that rocks, right? I mean, you would have all that stuff. And here is let's assume that this is your resume. And so all I was doing was down here at the very bottom of your resume, maybe it's still in that. Yeah, here it is. It's still here. So all I'm doing is down here at the very bottom, you know, I'm going through and I'm going and I'm getting rid of a bunch of stuff, right? Now, here's a funny thing. So if this was an IT job, what I know is that if their job description has the phrase cancer prevention in it and I leave it in my resume, I'm going to get a positive score for that because nobody else's resume is going to say cancer prevention, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to get rid of a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter. Enterprise copiers. Now I mean, if I left enterprise copiers in here, it's going to keyword match, not keyword, but just word match, right? VMware. So I'm going to hone this down where it's not this whole thing, but it's going to be at the bottom of your resume, right? It's at the bottom. It's there for keyword matching purposes. I might even put it right here, you know, keyword match. I put these things in here from the job description so that I can get higher ranked in your thing. I mean, I'm kind of all about transparency. And then what I would do is any of these things that like Amazon, if that really is if it could be in this body of your resume, put it up here too. If S3, you know, if Azure storage services could be up here, put it up here too. So those things that actually really fit with everything else that you do, you'd want to highlight them. And then if at the top of your resume says executive summary, don't bother to put executive summary at the top. Instead, take the actual job description and put in the actual job description, system administrator, right? And so that's what I mean, right? That's what I mean. So your resume will be the same resume it ever was. You'll pull some things from here that you can, make them higher, put them in there more times, and then just take this block down at the bottom. I'd get it down to where, you know, it's probably about that long is what I would have, probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 lines of stuff, all separated by commas. And that's going to ensure that your resume will rank much higher in these algorithms. And I can't tell you how often they're used. No question when you apply online on Indeed and ZipRecruiter and other kinds of things like that, they're doing it for sure. All right. So that's what I mean. Your resume is still the same resume it ever was. What we're doing is we're just trying to get through that hurdle of these ridiculous matching keyword, not even keyword, word matching algorithms. And the reason why I say ridiculous, let me just be clear. The reason why I say ridiculous is because they don't work. But I do understand why people use them. And that's because, you know, I have, as an example, friends who work at places where they're responsible for 30, 35 jobs, and a couple hundred people apply per job, and they have 6,000 or 7,000 people a month who are applying for the jobs that they're working on. If they did nothing more than read resumes, they would have time to do nothing else. They couldn't interview anybody, they couldn't do anything. So out of sheer desperation, people have decided that using these tools makes sense because at least it's some arbitrary cutoff point that they can use to get rid of 4,000 of the or 6,000 of the 7,000 by doing this keyword matching and cutting them off and just dropping it. Now, is there a good chance that the best people to hire are in the set of 6,000 that they just chopped out? Yes. Good chance that there are some really great people. In fact, statistically, the best hires are going to be in that set. But because they can't deal with 7,000 applicants, they do something out of desperation to weed it down. And the most common thing is this keyword matching thing. So just don't let yourself don't stumble over that, right? It's too easy to get around. What else?
Great. A couple more questions. Is it okay to make my CV look better than I really am?
Uh,
Exaggerate on skills or experience just a little, even though I may have experience in what you're looking for.
I think if you're not elaborating by at least 20%, whatever that means, to 30%, then I assume that you are. And so I dial it back, and people are in general are going to dial it back. So if you didn't dial it up a little bit, when I dial it back, I dial you down, right? So yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I mean, here's the thing about your resume, that your resume and everything you're doing in your interviews and stuff is about the truth, and nothing but the truth, but not necessarily the whole truth, because a lot of who you are and what you do and the things you've done are kind of boring and irrelevant, because that's true for all of us. And so what you want to do is get rid of the stuff that isn't relevant, focus on the stuff that is, and paint that in the most desirable light that you can, because we assume that you're embellishing a little bit. And so if you don't embellish and polish, right, a little bit, then when we dial it back down a little bit, we dial it back too far, right? So yeah, embellishing a little bit, but you can't carry it so far that you can't back it up. Assume you might have to have a conversation around it. A great example of that is that if you know, most of you know that you ought to be really putting results and accomplishments that you had in your resume. And sometimes if you don't know how to put a number behind that, you can do this. Like I've asked people before, it's like, hey, that project that you did, did that somehow improve customer satisfaction? And they're like, yeah. Okay, cool. Did it double customer satisfaction? If you're like, no. Right? Okay, cool. Well, did it increase customer satisfaction by 1%? Well, yeah, of course. All right, cool. What about 50%? No. How about 10%? Maybe, probably a little more. 20%? Nah. 15% maybe? Okay, how about say 12? Pick 12. Well, I don't know that it's exactly 12. Well, I don't either. Neither does the person reading your resume. And if you actually get to the interview and they say, hey, so you increased it by 12%, the first thing you say is, you know what? I don't know it was exactly 12%. In fact, we didn't have the tools in place to measure it, but let me tell you the story. Would that be all right? And so now you get the chance to tell the story about why you think that customer satisfaction was increased. Was it exactly 12%? I don't know. It was certainly more than 10%. And, I'm not sure it was greater than 20%. So I just decided to put 12 because I got your attention. So something, so it worked out, right? You might even get a laugh. So yeah, that's what I think.
And one last question here, and then we can move on. It's kind of twofold. It's about LinkedIn. When you're sending the messages to connect to the hiring managers, recruiters, and what have you, should you attach your resume at all, or should you just?
No, in fact, no, probably not. I mean, mostly when you connect with somebody in LinkedIn. Let me show you I'm going to bring this back up. So what happens when you send me a connection request is, see this, please connect with me, by the way. Gary O'Neill, you can find me. Hey, Marissa, hi, how are you? Hopefully Marissa's still here. But good morning, Gary. I'm currently in your job search webinar. So check it out. The only thing somebody sees when you send them the message is they only see this much of what you put in. Otherwise, I have to click see more. And so what's happening when you're sending these connection requests or what have you is that mostly, I wish I could tell you that I really read all these and I open them up and I look at them all, but I don't really. And what I usually do is that if I have the time, what I'll do is I'll click reply to Marissa, and then I've got these little keyword shortcuts. Let me show you. I got these little keyword shortcut things like this one, LIKW, that says, hi, thanks for your kind words. It's gratifying knowing that the things I've learned along the way are helpful. Wishing you all the best. And so what I'll do sometimes when I'm in a hurry, and where did we go with that? Here it is. I'll type LIKW, I'll hit that, which expands it, and I send that. And then I hit accept, or that's if I have the time to do it. If I don't have the time to do it, then what I'm doing is I'm hitting this, see all 23 people who have, all 22 who have accepted my connection request. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go accept and accept and accept and accept. So no, I wouldn't send anything, and you can't assume that people are going to read your message at all with regard to the connection request. The reason why you're connecting with people is so that, one, they can find you, and two, so you can get their contact information so you can communicate with them. By the way, if you ever quote unquote post your resume on Indeed, it's kind of pointless because Indeed kind of is your resume. But two, when we download it, what it gives us is a JPEG of your resume, which is ridiculous. But yeah, so no, I wouldn't send my resume when I do that. Are you there? Are we still on?
I was kind of saying we can move on.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. We're doing great on time because there's a lot more slides here, but we've kind of covered most of the real meat, and I'm just going to show you some different ways to be able to use that. So here's the thing. What we're talking about is, what are all the things you can do to more effectively apply for jobs? And one of them is you need a resume that rocks. We have a whole session on resumes that rock. And I'd be happy to, I'd love it if you would join me for that sometime. But here's the deal. Your resume that rocks is this. I believe that you ought to have what's called a professional brand as your summary, and I'm going to show you that next. Clear, simple, and concise. A resume is one of those places where less really is more. There's probably way too many words in the majority of resumes. you can assume that the people who are doing early stage review of your resume are trying to get through dozens or hundreds of them, and prose and paragraphs are difficult to read. And so the early stage people who are going through the stuff would really prefer bullet points, really simple, straight, clear forward, because we're moving pretty fast. And the truth is, when somebody is doing that kind of work and they don't feel like reading your paragraph, then they just click decline, knowing that no one's ever going to go back and double check their work. I don't go back and double check the work of the people who are on my team who do that stuff. I don't have time to do that. So clear, simple, and concise. Matching words and phrases between the job description and your resume, right? That it uses their language, that speaks in their terms, so adopt their terms as much as you can. Highlight your results and your transferable skills and your characteristics, right? We go into this in the resume that rocks. And a link to your LinkedIn profile, your personalized LinkedIn URL on your resume, because if I have that, I will bail right out of your resume and I'll go straight to LinkedIn. And let me show you the primary reason why. And almost every recruiter that I know of, when I've asked them this question, they say, oh yeah, I'll bail out of a resume and go to LinkedIn in a heartbeat. And here's one of the reasons why. One of the reasons why is, I'm looking at my phone right now, by the way. What I want to show you is this. When I try to, a lot of my work is mobile these days, and a lot of us as recruiters are fairly mobile, and a lot of recruiters work a lot of different places, right? And so when I'm trying to work off my phone, and this is what I see in terms of your resume. I don't know if you can, let me turn my camera back on, look at my webcam. I want to show you what I see. So yeah, so there's your resume on my phone, right? Not yours, but Liz's resume. And it's little and tiny, and I have to expand it, and now I have to, right, I have to goof with it like that. So that's what happens when I'm trying to look at your resume on my phone. So instead, what I do is that if you gave me your LinkedIn profile, check out this. So instead, I click on this. Open this app. Now it brings me here, and it's actually optimized for my mobile, right? And I can actually see what's going on. And so, yeah, just know that if you give us a link to your LinkedIn profile, we're going to, one, appreciate it, and we're going to bail out of your resume, and we're going to go to your LinkedIn profile if we're on mobile, or even if we're not, because it gives us more context. So to effectively, effective job search strategy is about having a resume that rocks, right? That is an important thing. You need a professional brand. And what I mean by a professional brand is that at the top of your resume, in that summary section, I think most people waste that space. They don't know what to do with it. Most of the time, what I see in the top is one of two things: is either a really short version of your work history, which is pointless because your resume is only a couple of few pages anyway. And so I don't need a short version of your work history. So don't do that. The other thing in your summary is people will self-aggrandize, and they'll put these lists of keywords. You've seen those just, executive leadership and this kind of stuff, and like those columns of keywords. Yeah, we all ignore those, by the way. Those of us who do that professionally for a living, because they don't really tell us anything. You might think it's a good idea, and there might be career coaches who tell you to do that kind of stuff, but most of the career coaches have never made their living because people get hired. And so what I think that you need to do at the top of your resume, and in general with regard to your job search, is to have what I call a professional brand or professional brand summary. And let me just show you what that looks like. Here's a paint by numbers version of it. And I believe that your professional brand is all about, it's not about your past. It's about, planting your feet where you are today and projecting and painting a picture of the kinds of success that you create moving forward. That's what your professional brand is all about. So the summary of your resume needs to be grounded in today, and it needs to project you out into the future and say literally almost nothing about your past, because that's what your work history is for. And so under this heading of an effective job search, when you have a professional brand, it goes something like this, or at least this is my paint by numbers version of it is, my name is Gary O'Neill. I am a blank and a blank. I am a system administrator and an IT security specialist. I am a recruiting leader and a corporate hiring specialist. I am a software engineer and a machine learning professional. I'm a statistician and an econometrics professional, right? Whatever it is, and you pull those things from the job description if they're there, and you put them into your brand, right? So my name is Gary O'Neill. I am a this and a that with this stuff that makes me unique. If you're in career transition, certifications are really powerful there with A plus, Net plus, Security plus certifications. With something that makes you unique in terms of your ability to stand out. I help these kinds of companies and these kinds of people solve problems like this one, that one, and the other one. My skills include this one, that one, and the other one, and I'm currently ready to this. So if you could tell this story, now you have a great professional brand. And notice that it doesn't say anything about your past. So here's an example one, right? My name is Gary O'Neill. I'm a certified network administrator and IT security specialist with CompTIA A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and NCSE certifications. Help companies keep users productive, minimize IT costs, and protect company assets and data assets. If I was applying for a job that I saw online, I would have pulled some of these things out of that job description, by the way. My skills include server administration, desktop support, and network security management. I also would have pulled some detailed skills and specific technologies out of the job description if I was applying for one. I'm ready to join an organization where effective IT management can make a significant difference to business success or something like that, right? That's my brand. And then what I do is that I take this professional brand statement right here, I'll put it in bullet point form and put that as the subject or as the summary at my in my resume. And not only the summary in my resume, but that's how I introduce myself. It becomes the content of my cover letter. This notion of this professional brand is all about I'm right here today. This is who I am. These are the roles that make sense for me. These are the problems that I solve. These are my skills and my ability to do this kind of work. And here's my current situation. And that's your professional brand. And again, it kind of falls under that heading of I make my living because people get hired. So when I'm presenting a candidate to a hiring manager, if I was presenting a machine learning engineer to Mike Ryan, this is exactly what I would do. So I would say, Sally is a machine learning professional with advanced degrees from the University of Texas in statistics and economies. She predominantly helps companies with large volumes of data find patterns in the data, identify ways to visualize those patterns for clients, and provide them with examples of decision-making support. Her specific skills include this one, that one, and the other one, plus these kinds of tools and those kinds of things. And her current situation is one where she's really wanting to get out of the semiconductor world and into a software company, particularly a software as a service company like Revionics. And so that's exactly how I present people over to hiring managers. And what I figured out over the years is when I use this pattern to present them, then the chance of me getting somebody to an interview goes up significantly, which means the chances of me getting paid goes up significantly. So if it helps you, just let you know that over the last 20 years, I've kind of honed this professional brand that I use to present people to, because the chances of me getting paid goes up, which means that if you use this, the chances of you getting hired goes up too. Cool. All right. Okay, cool. So here's the thing. When you're in the open job space, right, a resume that rocks is really helpful. Professional brand statement at the top is really helpful. Then we've already talked about this, but don't just apply. When you apply for a job, you apply at the end of the line. Where you really want to be is at the front of the line. So do this. Have an automated search so you can apply quickly, so that if I post a job right now, and I might look in a couple of hours, be one of the first 10 people who are applying for the job, because I will pay attention to that, or our administrator, whoever's doing it, is more likely to pay attention to that. When you see a job that's posted online, connect with a recruiter, connect with a hiring manager, connect with a bunch of peers. Once you get their contact information, once I've accepted your connection request, then follow up through email. That's the most effective way to get them. If you're brave enough, pick up the phone and give them a call. Check for other ways to connect. No one ever sends Mike a message through Twitter. You'll be the first person who ever sent him a direct message through Twitter. Hey, I hear that you guys might be hiring machine learning scientists, right? Give them your GitHub or whatever it is. Reach out by phone and have a few politely persistent follow-ups is my suggestion to you. And if you do this, the likelihood of you getting interviews, because that's the next step, goes up dramatically. It goes up dramatically, right? Because you're actually doing what it takes to get the job done. You're taking your job search in your own hands. And what I told you a while ago, and I believe this firmly, is that waiting is not a strategy. Don't wait. Because when you're waiting, you're allowing somebody else to make discernments and decisions about your future. And those people are not qualified to do that. So, take responsibility for it yourself. All right, so kind of bringing this in, right? We got just the right amount of time to land this thing in the right place, which is everything we've been talking about is this assumption that there was a job that was posted online, and what are we going to do to better respond to the job post so we can get to the front of the line? But the thing I really want you to think about now is what was happening before the job was posted, right? What was happening before the job was posted? And, rather than belaboring it, let me just jump right to it, which is in Mike Ryan's case, for the last couple of months, he's been struggling to get budget and get permission to hire someone. That was what was going on. His team is overworked. He's afraid that a few people might quit because they're overworked, right? He's having to say no to some things right now. I mean, life is not pleasant for Mike because this is important, right? So what was happening before that was Mike recognized that there was a problem. And not only did Mike recognize there was a problem, Mike already recognized, whoops, went the wrong way. Mike knew 3 months ago that he was got to hire somebody. I mean, he knew it because he saw the problem. And the truth is that there's never a job open. No companies hire anyone unless there's a problem that needs to be solved, because the problem that needs to be solved is your opportunity. That is your opportunity. And sometimes it's a good problem, which is their case, it's a good problem, which is they have way more clients than they have the people to service that. So it's the good kind of problem. Sometimes it's the bad kind of problem, which is things are really broken or they're really messed up. So no matter what, no company hires anyone unless there's a problem. And what was happening before the job was posted was that a hiring manager is aware of the problem. They were in trouble because of the problem. Their hair is starting to catch on fire. They're fighting for budget. They're frustrated. Their team is so there's all kinds of stuff that are happening before the job is ever posted. So think about it this way. The way that it really works is that a problem appears and the hiring manager goes, right? In general, what's going to happen is they're going to try to reorganize. They did that, right? I can tell you how they restructured their team, trying to make things happen, but ultimately that's just a band-aid. And this is at the point what I call a future job. And the reason why I'm calling it a future job is that Mike knew months ago that he was going to need to hire someone. He just didn't have the authority to go do it. But had someone who is a machine learning scientist who has the right kind of background and stuff reached out to Mike, I promise you, Mike would have engaged with that person. He would have followed up with them. He would contact them. He would know that he's bringing on somebody on board his team. And right now, that person's at the front of the line because there isn't a line at all, right? There is no line at all. This is a future job. And then the truth is that had someone reached out to Mike a few months ago, it's hard to go get a CFO to give you permission to just open a job. That's like a blank check. It'd be a whole lot easier if Mike was able to bring Sally in and say, hey, I met Sally as this machine learning engineer. I'd like to hire Sally. And so that's easier for them than getting a blank check to open a job. But, so months ago, the problem appeared, Mike reorganized, he recognizes it, it's a future job. Then what happens is time goes by, the problem is getting worse, his team is getting frustrated, he seeks budget, he gets told no, he seeks budget, he gets told no, he seeks budget, he gets told no, right? And finally they're like, yeah, okay, fine, but it becomes an internal search, and it's up to Mike to somehow magically find his own person because they don't want to pay me and my team to help him. So months go by, they hadn't had time to do it because they're buried. This is what's called a hidden job, which is it's officially open, but it's not even posted anywhere and nobody's working on it other than the hiring team. This is really, really typical. Had you reached out to Mike during this period of time and you were a good fit for that role, I promise you, Mike would have talked to you. Anybody on the team would have talked to you. The peers would have responded to you because they're trying to figure this out, right? And then finally what happens is time goes by, the problem grows, the hair's on fire, it becomes an external search. They hire somebody like me, they post the job, and finally, the hiring manager who wishes that they could have hired people months ago, finally has a little bit of help to make some things happen. And that's now it's an open job, a line is forming, and when you apply for the job online, you're applying over here, right? You're at the end of the line, thank you, as opposed to where you would have started months ago was at the front of the line. You would have been the only person Mike would have even considered. So here's the deal. Future jobs, hidden jobs, open jobs. The notion here is that you can, in the open job space, it's competitive and you're competing. And I already told you some things to do to better compete. Let's move backwards. This hidden job is all about connecting to these people who have the hidden jobs, and future jobs is about creating your own opportunity, because there was a future job before they got approval to hire, and then time goes by and they get help with hiring, it gets posted or something like that, and less than 20% of jobs ever even make it into this space, right? Maybe 30%, but a bunch of those get hired these other ways too by people who they know. So let's talk about how to deal with that and what you do. So here's the thing. When you're competing in the open job space, we already talked about that. Don't just apply for a job, have a professional brand statement, a resume that rocks, leveraging LinkedIn to be easy to find the people and ace your interview, right? Easier said than done. But we do have sessions on all of those things. But the thing is, there is no line at all before the job is open and posted. There is no line. So by definition, if you do the same things that we were talking about in terms of identifying people and reaching out to them, when there is no line, there's some percentage of those people who know that they need to make a hire, because the period of time, I'm going to go back a couple of slides, the period of time behind the line where it was posted is generally longer than the period of line in front of it. So hiring managers generally know for months ahead of time that they're going to need to make a hire. And this is a period of weeks because their hair is on fire. So not only is there no line, but there's a much longer period of time. And especially if you're in career transition, that if a hiring manager is able to connect with you sooner, then they're not so desperate that they have to have somebody who has all the skills and all the everything, because their hair's not quite on fire yet. So there is no line before it's open and posted. So, we've already talked about this, but what is happening after approval, but there's no help and no job posting, which is the hiring manager is hoping something's going to happen and they take a few stabs at it, but they're not really, right? So here's the deal. In the places where there isn't an open job search, here's the things that you can do to really make a more effective job search. One is be easy to find, because Mike does search for people. Hiring managers search for people, and they search for people on LinkedIn. So leverage LinkedIn with a search optimized profile. And what I mean by that is that join us for leveraging LinkedIn, but the short version is, when you're thinking about what to put in your LinkedIn profile, you need to think about it from the perspective of how is someone going to search for you. And what they're going to do is they're going to search for the title of your current job. So if they search for software engineer, but you had, developer, you're not going to come up in their search results. So you have to make sure that you have all the words that somebody might search for. And join us for leveraging LinkedIn. We tell you all about how to search engine optimize your LinkedIn profile, so that when somebody is looking for you, that you'll likely come up in their search results. By the way, one of the number one things you can do is connect with people, because if you're not connected to me, first level, second level, or third level, particularly first or second level, you don't come up in my search results. So if you're not connected with me, I'll not find you. So you got to build your network. Make sure you have your email and your phone number so you're easy to contact inside of your LinkedIn profile. Have your resume out on Indeed, Monster Board. Do everything you can to make sure that you're easy to find. But then you build your network, right? Lots of connections on LinkedIn. Connect with recruiters, connect with people you know. That actually matters less than connecting with recruiters and hiring managers, right? That's really, 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 really what you need to do. So let me show you just a little bit of that. I'm going to give you one quick example. So here's what, if I were you, what I would do. I'm going to close a bunch of these windows, and I'm going to turn off my webcam because I think it goes faster. Cancel that, cancel that, cancel that, close some windows. Thanks for letting me clean up a little bit. All right. I'm going to open a new tab, and I'm going to go to LinkedIn. So here's the thing. Let me just show you what to do. So let me show you. Here's what I would do if I was looking for a job. And while this is coming up, let's think about statistics for just a second. So in lots of roles these days, particularly IT related roles, because I know a lot of you may be transitioning into IT related roles. What I can tell you about that is the average length of employment is going down dramatically. It's shocking to me how many people that I see who's, 8 months, 11 months, 1 year, 3 months, under 3 years is common. So that means in lots of IT roles, you have a third of the people who are turning over every single year. And if you look at like system administrator type jobs in Austin, Texas, or people who are system administrators in Austin, Texas, there are thousands, like thousands of them, 3,000 or 4,000. And so you figure that if a third are changing jobs, that means that at any given time, there's a third per year. So if there are 5,000 in town, then a third of that is what, 1,500-ish or so, maybe a little bit more, 1,700. If you divide that by month, right, there's about 150 per month. It generally takes about 2 months for an organization to fill a job. So that's about 300 people at any given time who are making that transition. And so you got to figure that since the hiring manager knew months in advance of that, that at any given time when you run the math, about 15 to 20% of all hiring managers for any particular role are aware of the fact that they're going to need to make a hire. So if you figure that 10 to 20% of them already know that they're going to need to make a hire, you just got to go find the people who have the kinds of problems that you solve and reach out to them, right? So here's a really simple way to do it. So come to LinkedIn, search for people. If it were me, and I guess it is me because I'm the one who's showing you what to do, what I would do. Here's what I would do. I would go to this all filters thing, and I'm going to go find people who are in jobs that make sense for me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to this title field, and I'm going to say network engineer. And then I'm going to go up here to location, and I'm just going to pick Austin, Texas. And I'm going to apply this search. And I got 1,255 people whose title is network engineer in Austin, Texas, right? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look at where they work, and I'm going to make a list of that. So what I can do at this point in time, I'm going to go to I'm going to hop down to page 3. So, one simple way is, where do all these people work? Well, University of Texas must have those kinds of problems. ARM is a company here in town. TG is a company here in town. Hanger Incorporated, right? So I can go through this list, or I can actually go open these profiles and I can go see where it is that they work, and I can go make a list of the places where the professionals who are in the kinds of roles that make sense for me, I can go make a list of all the places where they work. And then what I can do is I can modify my search. So here we have a network engineer at ARM. And so what I'll do is I will go back to all filters here, because what I'm looking for is, I would connect with those people, by the way, connect with those peers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into ARM, which is, I want people who currently work for ARM, which is a semiconductor company. ARM in Austin, Texas, and I'm going to change this to just say IT director, because that's probably who the hiring manager is. Let's go see if I can find anybody with that title. Mark Burrows, Senior Director, Engineering Service Operations at ARM. So there's a good chance that Mark Burrows is the hiring manager. So what I'd do is I'd go find people who are in roles that make sense for me. I'd go make a list of the places where they work, and then I'm going to go into LinkedIn. I'm going to search those companies and see if I can identify likely hiring managers, likely peers, people who are in HR, and people who are in recruiting. So I'd come back to my all filters here. I'm going to leave Austin, Texas. I'm going to leave ARM. And I'm going to come down here down to the bottom, and I'm going to change this to recruiter. And hit apply. And there we go. We got 3 of them right now. Denise, right? Jessica. So I would connect with all of these people. And when I get their connection request back, then I got their email address. Once I have one email address at a company, I pretty much have them all. And now I start this whole thing of reaching out to those people. Hey, Denise, my name is Gary O'Neill. I'm a network engineer here in Austin, Texas. Just doing a little bit of networking. When the time is right, I would be, honored if you would consider me for, the ways that I might be able to add value as a network engineer or whatever role makes sense to you at ARM. And I would reach out to hiring managers. I would reach out to these people. And what's going to happen is that there are far more jobs that are open that are not posted than there are jobs that are posted. And the way you're going to find them is by reaching out like that, because you're going to create serendipity in somebody's life, because you're going to reach out to them, you're going to connect with them, and they're going to go, whoa, it's been, man, a miracle just happened, because we were hoping that we would hire somebody and we were hoping to find somebody. We hadn't had time, but look at this person reached out to me. And the next thing you know, you created the line and you're at the front of the line. All right. We've already talked about these things. So really what you want to do is to create that list of target companies, identify your champions, who are the recruiters, the hiring managers, the peers, and the hiring managers, and then execute a communication campaign. And it's really not that hard. I mean, that's what we do professionally as recruiters. Like I said, I ran a search yesterday, came up with 600 and some odd people in my search. I reached out to about 175 of them yesterday. About 30 of them responded overnight. I'll be reaching out to them. I'll be following up with those conversations. So if you identify one company and reach out to those people, that's awesome. Identify 2, identify 3, identify 20, identify 50 companies, and go reach out to 3, 4, 5 people at each one of those. Reach out to them multiple times, and you send this set of messages of 500, 600, 1,000 messages out this month. I promise you something is happening, and something good is going to happen, because people hire people. And what you did is you just skipped all of the things that are in your way, and it's all about getting yourself to the front of the line, right? Get to the front of the line. I'd really rather take some questions and go into this. So I'm going to go over some of these things fairly quickly. I don't think they matter that much, but when I talk to people about this concept of, hey, what makes something a good target company, what mostly I get is people say, well, a company that's growing, or they have good benefits, or well, that's what makes them good for you. But with regard to job search, it kind of doesn't matter whether they're good for you, and you can't really tell. What makes a company a good target company is that they hire the people like you, that they have the kinds of problems that you solve. And so first, just identify companies that have the kind of problems that you solve and reach out to those people. You can figure out later whether or not they're going to be a good place for you to work, right? So a target company is the kind of company that has the kinds of problems you solve. And there's 2 ways to identify target companies. One is to use a known target company and find other target companies, but the better way is go find people who are work currently in jobs that are the kinds of jobs that make sense for you. And then by definition that those companies hire people like that. By definition that a third of those people are going to be turning over this year, which means at least 10 to 15% of those hiring managers already know that they need to hire somebody. So go find them, go reach out to them, right? That's really how to do that. One quick side note on identifying great companies, and I'll just say it, which is, I believe I would be doing the world a service if I could get rid of Glassdoor and some of these other tools that are like that. Take what you find on those sites with a massive grain of salt. And I suggest that rather than spending a bunch of times trying to identify companies where you might want to work, instead identify people and connect with those people through LinkedIn, and just abandon all the stuff that anybody advises you to do with regard to as much. Now, if you're going on an interview, that's a different thing. Go figure out and learn about the company. But I'm just saying, until you get to the point where you're talking to somebody, you can spend hours investigating companies, and if nobody is responsive to you, kind of who cares? It doesn't matter. I can also tell you that whatever you find online, particularly with regard to Glassdoor and things like that, I know great companies that have terrible reviews. I know horrible companies that have great reviews, because their head of marketing gets paid by having people write fake ads. So be careful with what it is. You might also want to know that most small businesses, for them to be able to update or change anything about their profile on Glassdoor, the least expensive thing they can buy is $6,000 a year. So be careful when you're doing research on companies. It doesn't tell you much. I know a lot of companies really well, and what I can find about them online isn't that reflective of who they are. So be careful with that. So again, this is the same sort of thing. Reach out to recruiters, HR, hiring managers, and peers, find them on LinkedIn, connect, and then execute a campaign. Know ahead of time how you're going to approach recruiters and hiring managers and peers. It's going to be largely similar. Execute an email strategy, execute a phone campaign, at least 3 touches with each one, and then you can eliminate people off the list, right? So that you know what you're doing. And this is, again, the same message style. My name's Gary O'Neill. I'm a certified network administrator, IT security specialist to help companies. I'm networking to see if you might know anybody who might be interested in talking to me about how I can solve these kinds of problems. If that person knows that they're going to hire, they're going to self-select in. So if you send out 100 messages, just know you'll be lucky if you get 5 back, but the 5 you'll get back will be the ones that count. You don't need 100 replies, right? You don't need 100. You don't need 100, right? So these are the same messages that we had in there before we kind of saw this earlier. So probably my biggest suggestion to you in all of this is in terms of running an effective job search, which is people hire people and you need to connect with them. If you're in the open job space and you see jobs that are posted online, go find the people who are behind those jobs. Go find the hiring manager, go find your potential peers, go find the recruiters, go find the HR professionals, reach out to them and connect with them. And try to communicate to them directly and skip all the way to the front of the line. And then the thing is, with the jobs that aren't posted online, what do? Well, what you do is the same thing. Just go find people who are in jobs that make sense for you, figure out where they work, and go do the exact same thing. And I promise you that that is the way to not only find a job, but potentially to find multiple jobs and to get multiple offers. So all I know is if you do these kinds of things and you get yourself to the front of the line, then that is the way to get hired. So there you go. That's what I've got to say about that. If I was in the mode of executing an effective job search, this is exactly what it is that I would do. And my promise to you is that if you do a lot of these things, again, think about it in terms of if there's a set of people who are applying for jobs online, not modifying their resume and waiting, and you could bet $1,000 on that team, or there's the team of people who are executing this kind of a strategy, which team are you going to bet your $1,000 on? I mean, it's pretty clear to me which one. And so if I was you, I'd probably join this team as opposed to this one, right? What do you think, Mayan? We got a couple of minutes. Have we got questions or comments or anything?
Of course. Before we jump into questions, I just wanted to say thank you again, Gary, for presenting on such a great topic. And just a quick reminder that at New Horizons, we're working with you to achieve all of your employment objectives and hope that you will reach out to your New Horizons career consultant for more information. Once again, if you do not currently have a career consultant, you can log on to our website at www.newhorizons.com and do a quick zip code search to find the center that's closest to you. Also, a friendly reminder that we'll be also sending out an archive recording link to today's session for you to review and also to pass along to anyone who may have missed the session as well. So getting back to our questions, we do have a couple that did come in, Gary. One is when you were talking about following up politely, sending a couple emails and messages to the hiring managers or the recruiters when you haven't received a response. Should you think about using another method of follow-up besides LinkedIn? If you have their email or the phone number, do you suggest doing that as well?
Yeah, I do. In fact, LinkedIn would be one of my last choices for actually sending a message. I find that response rates are really low because lots of people filter. Most people don't come to their LinkedIn account very often, and they filter lots of mail. A lot of people filter the mail that they get from LinkedIn into their spam. And so you're always better when somebody connects with you to reach out to them via email. And if they have other ways of reaching out to them, yeah, use those. So, and if you're brave enough, picking up the phone is one of the most effective ways to do it. One of the things you should know is that I'm really, really easy to find and get a hold of, and I'm connected with all kinds of things. And I get maybe one phone call a month of people who are looking me up. So what you can know is that the hiring managers are out in the world get zero. You will be the one person who did that. So yeah, reach out to people and use email is probably if I had to pick one, it'd be email. And then, other things other than LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not I get out of LinkedIn as fast as I can.
All right. Another question is, and I know we have a resumes that rock session, but just high level, what are key things that you would put into a career changer resume? Do soft skills
Right.
become more important? What do you think should highlight?
Sure. So, one is that whatever you're doing to be prepared for the role that you're moving into, be it training, be it whatever it is, that's going to be a big section of it. In fact, one of the things that I would do is that if you look at your work history, I would actually pick that work that you're doing at New Horizons or whatever you're doing to prepare for that career transition. I'd put it in my work history because that's what's currently going on. I think of my work history as my story, and I would certainly put it in there. And then what you do is when you look at describing the work that you did in the past, the details of what you did if you're in career transition matter a whole lot less. What matters a whole lot more is, imagine that you have the skills and the capabilities to do the work of the job that you're transitioning into. What is the thing that's going to make you great at doing it? And then, those are characteristics like listening, and they're often those soft skills, listening, or the ability to, solve problems right the first time. Those kinds of things are going to make you great. Use your past work experience to demonstrate where you've done those kinds of things and focus on that. So if in a past job, you were, you ran the kitchen or somewhere, the details of how you ran the kitchen don't matter much, but team leadership and listening and those soft skills kind of stuff, those matter a whole lot more. And then the final thing with respect to career transition is, if you're in a field and transitioning into one where certifications matter, I think certifications are really important when you're in career transition, or can be really valuable, because the hiring manager, because they don't have a whole lot of work history to feel comfortable with you doing this, certifications will prove to them that the likelihood that you can do the work is a lot higher. So a couple of quick thoughts.
Great. And I know we're at the top of the hour, but a couple more questions. Um, when you've applied to a company and say they either didn't get back to you for that position you applied for, or you were rejected from a different position, is it okay to, or do you think, as a hiring manager or recruiter, do you think
Yeah.
it's okay to reapply to that company, even though initially they either bypassed you or said, you know what, thanks, but no thanks? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I would do the same thing, which is, it's not as much about applying for the job, particularly if you're talking about applying online, and it's a whole lot more about reaching out and connecting with those people. And so, but yes, I mean, I would essentially do it again. I mean, what harm is it? Not much harm can come from it. So yeah, absolutely. You have no idea what happened. I mean, they may have hired somebody and that person quit, right? Maybe they never hired anybody and they lost budget. Maybe they never looked at your resume at all, and the person who was going through and reviewing resumes got fired because they weren't any good. So the thing is, you have no idea what really happened. So yeah, I mean, run at it again. I mean, take another shot at it for sure. I would.
Great. Thank you again, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us for today's session. We're at the top of the hour. It's been a great 2 hours with you, Gary, as always. Thank you again. Um, Look out, make sure to take a peek at your email for the recording. It should be sent out. And with that, everyone, have a great weekend. That concludes today's webinar, and you may now log off.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for letting me be
Bye.
here. Bye.